So my wife did not like sunglasses for the longest time. She just was content with squinting, and even being from Florida and on the water all the time, that's just what she did. But I convinced her, got her a pair of Costas, and she could now see through the water, through the glare. She didn't have to squint all the time, and she's definitely come to my side as far as understanding the benefit of a good pair of sunglasses. You know, when you get a cheap pair, it might feel like it's protecting your eyes, but since there's no UV protection, it can actually do more damage. But Costas use the best of everything. It's 580 lens technology, which enhances comfort and color, brings out beauty, and helps you stay out and about outdoors longer, especially on the water where there's a lot of glare from the sun. But it can also help with snow. They're great for anything you're going to do out in the sun, anything adventure sport related. So go to costasunglasses.com and see what's out there.
Well, the other person started chasing my wife. So we're each moving as fast as we can with a person with a gun behind us. And after, a few seconds of running, 2 rounds get fired at me. And it felt really close. I could feel the bullet brushing my legs because I was wearing shorts.
This is the Adventure Sports Podcast, where we talk to athletes, adventurers, and business owners from around the world of adventure sports. Whether you're climbing Mount Everest, starting a bike shop, or getting up off your couch to take your kids hiking for the first time, we want you to have the motivation and inspiration you need to chase that next adventure. The Adventure Sports Podcast is brought to you by Camp Crate, the leaders in fully planned self-guided backpacking adventures, as well as backpacking gear rental. You can check them out at campcrate.net. So as you heard in the intro, you're in for a treat today. Crazy story with Yannick Chaigneau and his girlfriend, Shirley Lamb. They are now married. Crazy adventure incorporating 3 different disciplines over the course of continents, basically a transcontinental triathlon. It's going to be exciting. So if you haven't heard part 1, it was played last Thursday. This is part 2. These both originally aired 2 years ago. Also, just around Memorial Day weekend, so it kind of works out 2 years later. But anyway, we still have 2 more days left of the adventure grant applications open. If you are still thinking about doing an adventure, apply. We're giving away $1,000 to somebody, and nothing motivates you more to do something than to tell other people you're doing it and commit that to yourself. So even if it's for that sake, sign up. We'll email you and we'll hold you to it. And if it's a cool story, we'll have you on the show too. You can find out more. It's in the show notes. Speaking of which, all our deals are in the show notes for these sponsors. Athletic Brewing, they are the funders of the Adventure Grant. So at the very least, thank them for that by buying some non-alcoholic craft beer. And you can save 15%. That's in the show notes. CS Instant Coffee, they are the makers of 100% Arabica coffee that you can take with you anywhere you go because they put it in single-serve packaging. Very convenient. I use it when I go backpacking. And then the Nomadik subscription box filled with outdoor gear chosen by outdoor enthusiasts. In the show notes is a URL. We're giving away 3 free boxes, so sign up. All right, let's get into this episode.
I just can't imagine. I mean, any one of these 3 things is a major epic trip, right? And now you just finished paddling 1,200 miles, walking 2,700 miles. You've been going at this for, let's see, you are, 9 months into it?
Yeah, about 7-8 months in.
Okay, and now you jump on the bicycles. So what was that transition like?
Right, again, you got to think about the objective, right? Don't listen to your body because after something like that, your body's telling you to take a break and to do something else. But we were driven. We actually set a rules to not give up. We knew that it would be challenging, not only physically, but emotionally. We know, when you push your body really hard, you tend to break down sometimes, and you have some crisis, emotional crisis, I should say. But we had agreed before we started that trip that we will not give up unless we really hate every single minute of it for 2 weeks straight. So we gave ourselves 15 days of hating it before we would actually give up.
Okay.
And that never happened. There are times we get close. There are times we went 10 days with hating every minute of it. And then something magical happened, something great happened, and we get back into it and we say, oh, this is great. We love it. So we reset the 15-day clock and move on.
Wow. That takes a lot of perseverance. No doubt about it.
Definitely.
So you and Shirley ended up getting married. So that tells me that the relationship side of things worked out pretty well for you, but you mentioned the emotional challenges, the physical challenges of it all. Do you think it helped to grow you as a couple, or was it really a pretty good challenge?
It's, we knew there's no point getting married before that, and we knew that this trip would either make the relationship or break it. And we knew we would go through a lot of really hard things, and that we'll have to, to be very honest with each other. You can't hide your emotion or your feeling when you're going through, physical challenge like that. You just be who you are. There's no hiding happening anywhere. So for us, it worked out.
Wow.
It ended up, forming the relationship rather than breaking it. But we had our doubts. We heard several couples who did not last going through challenges similar to ours.
Oh, no doubt about it. But because of everything that you learned through this trip, I would expect that it kind of fortifies a relationship so much now, you probably feel like you could take on the planet.
Definitely. Yeah, that opens up a huge door, right? And you're actually wondering, is there a limit to this type of games, that we're doing?
Right. So when you started biking, to change from walking to biking, okay, we went from legs to legs, but it's a completely different motion. So was it pretty exhausting at first?
It's actually, surprisingly, that was the easiest part of the trip. We bicycle 14,000 miles, but you can glide, you can coast with a bicycle, which you can do when you're walking. The other thing too is you're dragging your equipment. It's attached to your bicycle in panniers, so it's not like if you have to have all the pressure on your knees and joints and your shoulders are hurting when you're hiking. So when we bicycle, we don't have all those issues. It's just leg muscle, no joint pain. So it felt like a breeze, to be honest. It felt like relaxing. You also have less of that boredom feeling that we had during the hike because you get to see a lot more scenery. The scenery is flying a lot faster when you're pedaling. I think we average about 60 miles a day, so about 100 kilometers. We just pick those round numbers, to give ourselves a daily goal. So 100 kilometers seem like the achievable, challenging enough, and we get to see a lot during that distance.
So here's a thought. When you're sea kayaking, you're pretty isolated. When you do the PCT, it's more social because you're meeting other hikers, but you're still in the woods. You're not in towns, right? But then when you start biking, now you're on highways and roads, and you're going through towns and cities. So how did that dynamic impact the feel for the trip?
Definitely a lot more stress. It's strange because I feel more at ease in the wild with bears around me and killer whales than I feel, in cities. I think animals are more predictable, because they're full of their instincts. So as long as you get an idea of instinctively, what they do, you don't want to invade their private space and you want to give them a lot of room and all this. Humans are a very different type of animal. Humans are, they're good and bad humans. I'd say the vast majority is good, but you have to worry about getting robbed and getting attacked. You also have to worry about cars and who's driving it. Are they on their cell phone? Are they under the influence of alcohol? So those are things you have no control over. You might be the best driver, best rider on the side of the road. You can be hit from behind by a vehicle. And, at that point is just a toss of the dice. We had a few close calls like this, by the way.
So of the three, would you say that biking was your least favorite?
We get to see a lot more sceneries, and unlike the previous two legs where we were in English-speaking countries, now we're going into Spanish-speaking countries, so more culture change. It's hard to compare and put them side by side. We like them all, but I felt more in control kayaking and hiking that I did bicycling. I really felt like bicycling, like if I survive the distance, I'm lucky. You see what I mean? It's not about me doing something wrong. It's about, are the others gonna let me live? So I felt that basically lucky star above me while I was riding for the most part.
Wow. Yeah, I can see that.
Because if I asked my parents, they thought, oh, now you're on a bicycle, you're doing like most people do, so they felt more comfortable about me cycling than they did about me being in the middle of the woods. But I felt the opposite.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. People often think of climbing 14ers as a dangerous sport, or maybe even distance backpacking because of the wildlife or the weather. But it seems like, to me, driving to work might be the most dangerous thing I really do.
I tend to agree with that, yes.
Yeah, it's just what we're familiar with, right? The unknown seems so scary, but when you've done the 3 different things like you did here, you're able to look at it and kind of quantify it and say, yeah, this was like this and that was like that. But for someone who's never done any of it, it all just seems so scary, perhaps, because it's unknown.
Right.
Yeah. So did you have a favorite country as you were biking through Central and South America? Did one pop out as, wow, this was just such a great place, wish we could go back there?
Definitely. Argentina, I'd say, was probably the country we liked the most. There's a lot of beautiful sceneries. You probably heard of Tierra del Fuego or Torres del Paine. Those are like national parks. Fitzroy, those are big iconic type places. The scenery of Argentina is gorgeous, and the food is out of this world. It's always about the food, right? When you're burning so many calories each day, you're looking for amazing things to fill your stomach and motivate you for the next leg.
So help me out with my geography just a little bit. Argentina would have been almost at the end of your trip.
Correct, yeah, but it's a very big country. I mean, the border, between Chile and Argentina runs close to 2,000 miles. So it's more like 3,000 miles. So it's a big country, and there's so much diversity and yeah, we felt also safer there. It's strange to say, but the disparity, between people sometimes, makes you feel unsafe.
Right.
So being Westerners that can afford to bicycle for fun, when most people in third world country don't even know what vacation is because they work, the land, and there's no days off. So us traveling the world the way we do, we tend to make people envious, I would say, at least the bad people envious. And, we're easy target moving on bikes. And when we crossed into Argentina, which is, I'd say, a country with more wealth, we felt like, people don't look at us as target as much, but more like, poor travelers. And we felt safer. It might just be, in our head, but we also had, other trouble along the way that made us feel this way. We got attacked a couple times.
Wow. So tell us about one of those times. What happened?
Well, we actually had people firing guns at us at close range, and that's not something that most traveler would expect. As a matter of fact, we talked to hundreds of cyclists who travel long distances like we do, and nobody else had a story like ours. But we were approaching Lima in Peru, and we were traveling along a very big road. It's called the Pan American Highway. That's basically the major road that crosses South America. And we were along that road, cruising along. We were probably a couple days from the town of Lima, the capital. And we saw a couple folks coming out of a cornfield that were, coming from the side. And we had probably a minute or so before, our path would intersect. And we calculated in our head that, if we keep moving at that speed and they keep walking at that speed, we're going to meet exactly, at the crossroad. By precaution, we decided to pick up the pace, and we noticed that they also picked up the pace. So at that time, we only had about 20 seconds to decide if we U-turn or if we try to beat them to the crossroad. We decided to pick up the pace, and they did pick up the pace. They started running, and they pulled guns out of their pants. 2 guns, 2 runners. And at that time, it was very obvious that they wanted to rob us. And we didn't want to get robbed. So we picked up the pace. And again, we're calculating, in our head, do we have a chance? Do we not have a chance? What are we going to do? And it's fight or flight at that point, right? We're not really discussing. We're just trying to survive, like a predator and a prey. And as we pick up the pace, I was a little faster than my wife at the time, although, we're carrying a ton of weight on our bikes in the bags. We build momentum, and there's one of those guys who pass in front of my wife's bicycle and start chasing me, while the other person start chasing my wife. So we're each moving as fast as we can with a person with a gun behind us. And after, a few seconds of running, 2 rounds get fired at me, and it felt really close. I could feel the bullet brushing my legs because I was wearing shorts, and then I started derailing. My bike started grinding, like I pushed too hard on the pedals, and when those first 2 rounds get fired, my wife started yelling to kind of distract the gunman. And he turned to her, and she was still behind him, and he was out of breath at that point. So he just, as she was passing next to him, he fired 3 rounds at my wife, and then it looks like he was out of ammos, and we kept going. The bicycle keeps gliding while the guys on foot have to stop, and we keep going, and we give each other a high five, thinking that it was a close call, and we survived. The adrenaline high.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, that was definitely emotionally exhausting, especially after we looked at our bicycle and realized that those were real bullets. At first, we thought maybe they were trying to intimidate us, and they actually fired real bullets. And the grinding on my bike was because they sectioned a cable on the top tube of my bicycle. So those were emotional moments. And after that, we were actually questioning whether it was worth it. Should we continue with our trip? We're about halfway on the bicycle leg. We're not doing this to risk our life and to get shot at or die. So we were questioning. It took us, a couple days of, discussion and decision and making peace with what happened and decide whether we would go on or not. We knew it was not a good idea to talk to our family about it because we knew exactly what they would tell us.
Oh, yeah.
So we just wanted to decide on our own without external influence whether what happened was something that happens a lot or if it was, the oddity. And once we figured out that's really rare and that we were lucky but unlucky at the same time, we decided that, things happen and we're just going to turn the page and continue with our trip.
It's hard to say, but similar things could have happened if you were staying at home, in the city somewhere in the U.S.
Right.
And
totally. I mean, it could happen everywhere. We're just at the wrong place at the wrong time. But we got lucky in the whole story here.
Yeah.
Because we have good stories to tell. I still have bullet impacts in the frame of my bicycle. Good stories. It turned out well.
Well, I was hoping when you said that they started firing rounds that they were just trying to scare you, like you said. But if your bike was hit, then they were pointed at you. That is crazy.
Right. And the interesting thing is the impact on my bicycle frame is right between my legs, where the fork intersect the main frame of your bike.
Right.
That's kind of where the bullet got itself into.
How does that happen?
And literally, it's just pure luck because I was pedaling so fast to run away from that attacker that my knee is moving up, twice every second. And if my knee was up when the bullet went in, I would have probably had an injured leg. So I was just lucky. My knee was down when the round was shot. And it all turned out well for us.
Okay, so you've got to hear how it went over the next few weeks. Did you find that experience to really be intimidating and make you kind of wish the trip were over, or were you able to move on and enjoy yourselves again?
I'd say, the timing, again, worked out really well for us because Lima, which was only 2 days cycling from us, was the town where we had planned to leave our bicycles in storage to go, do some mountaineering in the Cordillera Blanca, which is, where the high mountains are in Peru. So it turned out really well. We only had 2 days of, questioning and doubting every human around us when we were riding our bikes. But then we had a month and a half to kind of make peace with it. And we resumed the bike a month and a half later. We were fine. Emotionally, everything was fine. But yeah, it definitely takes time to regain trust in people.
Right.
The same thing happens when you get a close call and you have a vehicle that almost hit you when you're riding your bicycle. Sometimes it's a big truck or a car. There might be 1,000 cars that pass you, but one of them is not going to pay attention or is going to get too close for comfort. And then you're losing your trust in everybody. I think it's a natural feeling, but over time, you realize that people are good and you move on.
And it really is true. The vast majority of people, I've heard some people say, 90% of the people are basically good. They're trying to live their lives the same way as everybody else. And you've got maybe 8 or 9% that maybe they're up to no good, but they're really not out to get anybody. And then you've got the 1%. And that 1%, you just need to avoid.
I would think it's less than 1%. It's probably 1 every 10,000. And in our case, it was just bad timing.
Athletic Brewing is pioneering non-alcoholic craft beer. Yeah, I said non-alcoholic craft beer. And there's a number of reasons you might want to do that, whether you're training for an event, which a lot of our listeners are, or, if you're babysitting and don't want to be drunk in case something happens. I mean, stuff happens, but you still want to sit down and enjoy the game and have a beer. This is an incredible option for a full-flavored, full-bodied beer. Each can is only 50 to 70 calories, with IPA, golden ales, stouts, and tons of seasonal offerings. Athletic Brewing is a great option if you want that craft brewery taste, but not deal with the effects of alcohol itself. If you'd like to save 15% on your first order, go to athleticbrewing.com and use the code ADVENTURE at checkout.
So tell me about a really good experience that you had when you were biking.
Well, the people, definitely. I mean, the people who talked to us, who offered us food, offered us shelter, offered us to live with us. Ironically, right after that shooting incident, we were still in Peru. We spent the night after that incident at the police station in the next town. But then we continued our way to Lima, and we were really in a desert. It's interesting because the coastal part of Peru is a big desert where there's barely any tree, barely any vegetation. It's just sand dunes that get straight into the water pretty much. And we were about to enter a very windy, completely open section of the road. The last house before that desert starts, we pulled over, it was late at night or just before it got dark. We pulled over and we asked for permission to stay on those people's land or maybe use one of their walls for shelter from the wind. We've had done that hundreds of times. We ask permission to people, and the large majority of the time they would say, no problem, just pitch your tent, and we're out the next day. That happened to be a very, very poor Peruvian family who didn't even have a floor in their house. There's really bare dirt on the ground. And they allowed us to stay, and they insisted on, inviting us for dinner, which we gladly accepted, but we actually brought our food, and we had our stove, camping stove. Those guys didn't even have a stove. They were taking twigs to make a fire to heat up some water. We pulled out our stove that works with white gas, right? And we made a feast for them. They were amazed by the type of food, we were eating, and we were so happy to share that with them. And those guys, their main occupation is to raise guinea pigs. Probably heard that in Peru, people eat guinea pigs.
Sure.
So we were in a guinea pig farm, and we pitched our tent in the middle of those cages. All night, we had guinea pigs squeaking and escaping those cages and just surrounding us. And it was just the most adorable, the most, peaceful and I'd say soothing things we could have done. And we just have an amazing experience from that night.
Neat. So it's fun because, we're talking about scenery for the first 2 legs of the trip an awful lot. And I ask you what your favorite experience is from the last, extended bike ride. And it's the people. It's the interchange with the people and the culture. I think that's really fascinating. That's great.
Even in Alaska and British Columbia, the people were just amazing. You get to know them because we don't have all the distractions of the modern world. People don't have cell phones. People are not, spending all their time in their electronic devices. We really get to know each other and get to communicate and exchange, our experiences. The reason we got invited a lot is, to stay over at people is they wanted to hear our story. And a funny thing is, I'd say in a lot of the developing world, people are not really good with geography, but everybody heard of Alaska, right? So when we told them that our journey is going to take us from Alaska to the southern tip of South America, they automatically thought that Shirley, my wife is actually from Asian descent. They always thought she was an Eskimo.
Oh, okay.
Because she has those Asian features, and when we told them we started in Alaska, they automatically assumed that we were from Alaska, which was not the case, but that was interesting.
And everyone thinks of Alaska in a special way, too.
Yeah, they think of Alaska as people living in igloos, I guess.
Right. Wow. So what about tips or tricks for a long-distance bike ride? If someone else said, I want to bike the Americas and end up down at the southern tip of the southernmost continent, what would you say for them?
I'd say, make sure your bike is in order, that, you get the right tools, because we get a lot of punctures and a lot of things to repair. There's also a lot of bike shops all around that can help you if you happen to be close to one. But don't overthink it. Just head south. You can cover a lot of miles on the bike, and you can store a lot of items inside all those bags and trailers or panniers. I'd say it's definitely a little more, an easier kind of trip than hiking the Pacific Crest Trail.
Okay.
But overall, if you like meeting people and seeing a lot of scenery, biking's the way to go.
You can cover a lot more ground, that's for certain.
For sure.
Did you use a trailer with yours or just the panniers?
We used the panniers, and, it's always a big decision. I guess everybody who's preparing his bicycle has to decide, what method they're going to use. The panniers, the trailer, first of all, makes you wider. You have to be more cautious, if you're on something narrow, like a narrow trail, or if you're on a sidewalk, you sort of have to think about how the trailer behaves behind you.
Sure.
It would be harder if we need to put it in the back of a truck or something like that. Sometimes you, unfortunately, have to get help. We had some tunnels where they would not allow bicycles that we had to go through. So you have to find a nice soil to put your equipment in the back of a truck and move it around. But it's our choice went with pannier after reading a lot of reviews online, and we're glad we did. Worked out for us.
So did you each carry a spare tire? Obviously, you had to have spare tubes and patches, but did you carry spare tires as well?
We each did, yes. We had to replace only one tire through our trip each. Tire that worn out. So it's amazing that we still have to this date. We still have one of the original tire from our trip.
Wow.
The rear tire wears out a lot faster than the front because you have all the weight, from your body weight. Also the luggage you're carrying are pretty heavy in the back. So tires in the back definitely wears out faster. So we both replaced one of those, and the other tire is still in decent condition after 14,000 miles.
Yeah, that's wild. So last question about the equipment here. What type of bike would you recommend? I mean, we have ultralight racing bikes, we have touring bikes, we have mountain bikes, we have fat bikes. What kind of a bike do you think is appropriate for this type of a trip?
Surprisingly, I'd say any bike is appropriate. Along the way, we picked up, we met a friend who decided to join us on about a month of bicycle riding. And he had one of those cheapy type, bicycle that you can probably get in a retail store for $200 or $300. And it worked out for him. It's really a matter of what you feel more comfortable with. I know typically the more expensive bike, might have better components, might shift smoother. But ultimately, you You don't need a lot of money to do something like that. Any bike will do. The main challenge is to find a bike where you can attach all those bags to it.
Right.
Bikes with those screw threads area where you can tie or attach like the luggage racks and things like that.
Sure.
But if I were to do something similar to that again from my experience, I'd like to stay away from highways, and spend more time on dirt roads. I would probably use more of a fat bike to do that. You get better traction in the sand. And, now there's a lot of storage compartment that you put inside a frame, so you don't have all those luggage protruding on either side of your wheel. So just personal preference.
Sure. So how did the landscape kind of transition through South America down to the southern part of South America? Was there a vast amount of change? I mean, you mentioned that the coast of Peru was a lot of sand dunes going right into the sea, but generally, what would you describe the landscape like?
It varies a lot. It changes a lot based on the elevation you're at. So after Peru, we actually went to Bolivia on our bike, and we passed an area called Salar de Uyuni. It's a salt flat, a plateau that's at about 15,000 feet elevation. And it used to be an ocean, if you want to think about it like this. So the floor is all white, and it's all salt. And the distances are so huge that it doesn't seem like there's anything on the other side, but you just cycle through this for 40, 50 miles or so, and finally you see that mirage on the other side, right? Initially it just looks like a mirage, but if you keep your bearing straight, you eventually get to the other side. It's just gorgeous sceneries. There's also a lot of high mountains in the north of the Cordillera. Or should I say the Andes, right? A lot of mountains, and they get smaller and smaller as you go south. So highest peak there go up to almost 23,000 feet. We had to pass some really high mountain passes on our bicycle. But as you go more south, the mountains become lower and lower. And what that creates is a lot of wind. If you're on the side of the mountain sort of protects you from the high wind. But as the topography, becomes lower and lower, you get the full blast of that wind. So the southern part of South America, called Patagonia, has like incredibly harsh winds, sometimes strong enough that you can barely pedal into it. If you look at motorcycle riding in Patagonia, a lot of them are inclined at a 30-degree angle just to compensate for the side wind. And what makes it very dangerous is, you incline your bicycle or motorcycle to compensate for the steady wind. But if a vehicle passes you, let's say a bus or semi-truck, it's just blocking the wind all of a sudden. And it's really hard to, compensate for that change, which is so sudden. So you often drift into the lane of the vehicles next to you. So something to be cautious about. I remember specifically a day in Patagonia where the wind was so intense coming from the front that even in our easiest gear, we changed the gear on our bicycle to make it as easy as possible. This is typically the gear you would use on a very steep uphill incline. We were going flat on the easiest gear, and we were pushing so hard to move, less than 2 miles per hour.
Wow.
So we easily, decided to give up and, go the next day. Typically, from my experience, mornings are typically quiet and wind picks up, in the afternoon. It just never happened. So we were camped for quite a bit of time. And then we decided that we should keep going because the wind's never going to let go. Wow. Those are really harsh winding conditions, and very few people will brave them. It's just horrible, actually. It's not really enjoyable when you get sandblasted and wind blasted all day nonstop.
So what part of the trip did you experience this? You said as you went south, but where were you specifically?
That's for us. It started happening. I think it's seasonal as well, so that might have been, based on time of year. But we started reaching that southern Patagonia area around early December. So that might be when the winds start getting really strong. But I would say probably the last 1,200 miles, last 1,000 miles of the trip started getting rough. Now you can pick your battle, right? I mean, if you're in a very exposed area, you can change your course to sort of try to minimize those high winds. So, for example, if you stay at the base of a mountain, even if it's a low mountain, you might be sort of sheltered from those extreme conditions. And a lot of people choose to, from what we've seen, we met a lot of cyclists down there who choose to, to put their bike on top of a truck and just avoid that section altogether. And we were stubborn. We wanted to finish our trip, on human power. So we battled it, and we're happy we did.
Yeah, I'm sorry I chuckled a while ago, but you said, the last 1,000 or 1,200 miles of the trip, and I have to chuckle because so many people would say, the last 1,000, 1,000 miles is more than a full trip. What are you doing here?
The last 1,000 can only be 2 weeks, right?
That's right.
On a bicycle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, very, very cool. So I want to go back to what you said about, was it Peru and Bolivia, where you said you did some mountaineering? We should visit just a little bit about that. I mean, that's a part of the trip too. Yeah,
definitely. So as I said before, we thought, it would be too much to bicycle from California to the southern tip of Patagonia, because biking wise, I think the total time was about 8 months on the bike. So we wanted to break that up a bit and allow us to, experience something else, especially Bolivia and Peru, which were on my to-do list for a long time and many years. So we had a friend fly in to Lima. His timing worked really good. He was able to carry some of our equipment, mountaineering equipment, with him, which we did not carry on our bike. So he brought that in, and together, the three of us, started to tackle very high peaks in the Andes. And mountaineering was our primary, hobby and passion before we started that triathlon. So we had a lot of experience. We had done quite a bit of mountains prior to that. We climbed Denali, highest peak in North America. We had climbed Aconcagua, the highest peak in South America. We had climbed Elbrus, the highest peak in Europe. So we had done some big mountains before that. So we thought climbing in Peru was within our abilities. And it takes a little while for your body to acclimate to those altitude. But in a month and a half, we ended up summiting a dozen mountains above 20,000 feet. And as time goes by, our body was getting better and better. And those altitudes are really tough on the body. Once you come down from one of those peaks, you need to sort of recover and regain a little more oxygen and of course, try to eat as much as you can to make sure you're ready for the next one. But we spend a lot of time, mountaineering, and month and a half was just about right, because after that, everything gets old for us. Whenever we do something too long, we tend to get tired of it. So a dozen mountain was just enough for us, and we were able to move on and resume the bicycle. Which
you guys are overachievers. That's what I think. You're just overachievers.
Well, we take the opportunity when we have it, right? We happen to be in Peru, in Bolivia, with no deadline, really. When you work, you're going to take a 10-day trip, 12-day trip, 2-week trip, whatever it is, but you have a flight to get back.
Right.
We didn't have that restriction, so that really allowed us to, to do what we wanted and bag a lot of those mountains.
I want to take a second to tell you about the Nomadik. It's a subscription box curated for outdoor enthusiasts by outdoor enthusiasts. So each month you get a hand-picked selection of the latest and greatest outdoor gear that's been trip tested and approved by the Nomadik product team, which is made up of guides, athletes, and bona fide adventurers. They partner with brands like Mountainsmith, Gearaid, Sea-Line, Mizu, Empowered, RX Bar, and a lot more. This month's theme is Relax to the Max. So one item inside is an exclusive hammock by Lawson Hammocks, an award-winning hammock maker who's been voted #1 by Backpacker and Outside Magazine. So order by May 14th to get this box. So get quality gear by brands you trust delivered right to your doorstep monthly. Learn more at thenomadik.com/ASP. This episode is also sponsored by CS Instant Coffee, 100% Arabica coffee with compostable packaging. And you can find them at csinstant.coffee and use adventure at checkout for 20% off.
Share with us an experience that you felt like was just outstanding that happened during this season of climbing 12 peaks.
Sure. So probably our most memorable peak was a mountain called Artisan Rahu. And if you think about the, help me here, that's when a movie starts, there's that mountain that shows up with a big peak.
Yep.
Is it Paramount?
Yeah.
Okay. So that mountain, in the Paramount image, this is Artisan Rahu. This is where the image came from. If you look it up on the internet, you'll see like it's so stunningly, similar to the Paramount logo. And it's a very steep face with a lot of glaciers on it and, a lot of snow and ice, and very few people get to climb it. And we were lucky enough to reach the summit after a lot of effort. And it makes us feel, very special in this world. That's what we love about mountains. You can be one of the few people on planet Earth, to be that high, to get that view. And, it makes you sort of appreciate, being one of the few lucky ones.
Oh, yeah. The mountaintop experiences are all the better for having, the challenges of the climb. But I have to ask, after paddling, hiking, and biking, when you finally got to the tip of South America in Ushuaia, how was that experience? Was that a mountaintop experience of its own?
Sadly, it wasn't. I mean, we were so glad basically that the whole thing was over. But the next thing that happened, we were glad we had accomplished the goal, that was our life goal for 2 years. We were doing everything just to get to that finish line. And we passed that finish line, and all of a sudden, all our worries, our anxiety, our fears, all of that dissipated. And we're like, we're done. We don't have to get on the bike tomorrow. I mean, we're done. And the most amazing is that feeling of emptiness. And we were looking at each other and thinking, what's next? I mean, it's really hard to experience that in any other circumstance. But the feeling of wondering what's next, I've no more project for the short term, or even the long term. We're like, nothing can top what we just did. And it was just feeling blank,
Right.
You're completely relaxed and kind of lost at the same time, you don't know what's happening next. It's interesting. I still have that memory, we finished that trip in 2012. I still have that feeling that's in my body of how it felt to be worry free. In a normal life, we all have our, things to do, right? We have jobs, we have bills to pay, we have to make sure our car still works, we have to mow the lawn. We have a list of things that's endless. But at that time, there was nothing on my to-do list, nothing, in foreseeable future. The world was open to us. We could just do anything. We also felt like that we achieved the impossible, at least our impossible. And a huge door opened up. We're thinking, well, we've done this. Tell me one thing I cannot do. It's just, we were just expecting the next adventure to smile to us and move on. Now we were actually wondering what we would do next. And our next destination was the Himalayas.
Okay.
We felt like, that's the next thing we'd like to go to. We'd like to spend some time in Asia, spend a lot of time around Tibet and Nepal and see what's out there. And it turned out that my old company, who had, left 2 years prior, they were looking for somebody to work, and that was in my ability. So without an interview, really, I was able to get a job back. And I thought, that's unreal. Somebody still wants me. I'm still worth something in the job market. Honestly, I didn't think that would work. I was a little bit, worried about that. Am I still worth anything for the job market? But people welcomed me with open arms, and they all wanted to hear our stories, of course. And yeah, that was surprisingly smooth and effortless. to get a job back, which, speaks for itself, right? I mean, what does it tell me as far as future? It means if I want to go on another trip, looks like I'm welcome to do so, right?
Within certain limits, I'm sure that's true. And that's a beautiful thing, too, is we started the show. We started this visit here about talking about quitting the job to go do it and the scariness of that. And then at the end to say, well, they just welcomed me back. I picked up where I left off. I mean, that's awesome.
Pretty much, except that it felt like Back to the Future. Because we had left before the iPhone. We had left before the QR codes. And when we get reintroduced to civilization as we know it, we were kind of shocked by the amount of waste that we produce. And by waste, I mean, electricity, for example, right? All the lights that are on all the time.
Right.
We were living with 2 AA batteries, and they would last us a couple months, mostly, from light at night with our headlamp. And all of a sudden, we're in the world of plentiful, where electricity seems to be unlimited, and we buy things we don't need, and we have 100 of everything, and we buy things because they're pretty. When our trip, to be honest, like when I bicycled, I had 2 pairs of underwear,
right?
And that's fine. I wear one for a week, and then I assume it's dirty enough. I wear the other one and wash the first one, let it dry for a couple days, and I keep swapping. I had 2 T-shirts, 2 pairs of underwear, couple pairs of socks, and that lasted me, a year. So very, very different life. You sort of adapt to the life you're in. When we travel, the weight was very important to us. We try to be as light as possible. And we'd prefer to have dirty underwear than to carry an extra pair of underwear.
Right.
Just all those decisions you keep making. What's more important to you? Is the pain and suffering of carrying a backpack better or worse than having a clean pair of clothes?
Right, exactly. And then you get back into the Western society again, and what a shocker. How long did it take for you to kind of get over that re-entry shock?
I'm glad I had a job waiting for me when I came back, because in my head, it took me over 2 months to sort of become, civilized again.
Right.
That trip turned us into sort of mountain men, right? Like survivors. Think about Castaway, the movie, right?
Right.
You live in an environment where your priorities are different. Our priorities is we need food, we need water, we need to know where we're going to spend the night. Those were the only thing that occupied our thoughts. We didn't care about bills because we didn't have any. We didn't care about the news. We barely heard about it. We didn't even have, a cell phone with us. So we focus on different things, the human touch, basic survival kind of instinct. We get back to the basics, I can say, and readapting to the normal world seemed special. Just having a space to live in that's bigger than a bathroom. Because, we really lived in our tent for the vast majority of our trip. So we're looking at 27 square feet for 2 of us. So all of a sudden, being in an apartment felt like total luxury. A hot shower was a blessing. You have no idea how many cold shower we had to have.
I'm sure.
There were no other options.
Absolutely. Wow, what a fascinating story. We could go on for hours about this. I'd love to hear more, but let's change topics just a little bit. You were raising money for MedShare as part of this expedition. So what is MedShare and how did that go for you?
Yeah, so we knew we were going to do something big, and MedShare, raising money for a charity that's worth it really helped us stick with it. It's because you do things for yourself, but at the same time, if somebody relies on you, like MedShare did to raise funds for their charity, it gives you an extra motivation to keep pushing, don't give up, keep going at it. So MedShare, I heard of it from another kayaker that we met, who basically told us about it, and it's one of the most amazing and efficient charity that I've ever heard of. What they do is collect discarded medical supplies from U.S. facilities, whether they're hospitals or clinics. There's a very strict rules in the U.S. where you can't use anything past this expiration date. Sometimes it's a medical kit, right? Think about a box full of supplies where there might be syringes, there might be bandages, there might be aspirin, right? Hospitals have to throw that away past the expiration date of the aspirin. And there's plenty of good items in there, right? So MedShare collects all those items from hospitals around the country, and then they ship containers of that to the countries that need them. And they keep a very nice inventory, and I'd say it's a very efficient charity because the equipment is free. All their cost is the shipping of those supplies to those foreign countries. So $20,000 can bring a full truck-size container of supplies to people that need it. So along the way, we actually carried, a fair bit of medical supply. I'd say at least half a pannier, which was about 20% of our space, was with medical supply. And we talked to facilities along the way, mostly those rural hospitals and clinics. And we told them, hey guys, if you need supplies, we can get you those supplies. And they, honestly, the majority of them just thought that was too good to be true. They would not, they were thinking, what's the catch, right?
Right.
So our goal with Shirley was to raise money so we could ship a container to a clinic of our choice and allow people to get medical supplies that are perfectly valid. Of course, aspirin will not be used because it's expired, but everything else, syringes, bandages, anything else like that could be totally fine. They even collect electronic equipment, so it could be, breathing machines, it could be a wheelchair, it could be crutches, anything like that. Really, that's fully functional, could be used.
Oh, that's cool. So, how much did you raise for MedShare?
We raised about $5,000, and mostly is through our blogs. We didn't get much visibility, I think, on the internet because we're not really, web-oriented, let's say.
Right.
So we had a pretty simple blog, and we basically documented every single day of our journey on the blog. I can give you a domain, but you can probably find us by looking for Yannick and Shirley Transcontinental Triathlon. Look for those words. You probably find us. But yeah, a lot of people like to listen to our adventures, and they contributed to that charity.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that's Yannick and Shirley Transcontinental Triathlon. Just Google that, and they'll find you.
That's right.
Cool. Very, very cool. Well, I think I need to close out here by asking you, I know that you didn't quit adventuring just because you finished this epic triathlon. What's on the future plans?
Well, we needed a break, right? I mean, that was a lot of effort, and we had to reset our expectations. So we sort of took a break for a couple of years of doing big things, and we had a baby along the way. We have a 2.5-year-old boy, and we're sort of relearning how to adventure as a family. Right now, we sort of take turns. My wife and I used to do all those adventures together. Now, as the baby is still pretty young, and we don't want him to risk his life too much, right? We take turns. So I go one weekend, she goes one weekend. But we also acquired a climbing harness for our kid and took him on a couple canyoneering adventures, of course, at his level.
Right.
He loves the scrambling around. So I guess what we have for us is, some fun trips involving rock climbing, peak bagging, and so on. One thing we started doing, which we thought was pretty cool, is making climb big mountains. So I'm sure your audience has heard of 14ers, right? Mountains above 14,000 feet.
Oh, yeah.
So my son has climbed a 14er at age 1 on my back, of course. He has done 2 14ers at age 2. So this year, his birthday is in July. We're hoping we'll back 3 14ers this season. And hopefully we'll go on from there. Give him a sense of adventure as he grows up.
So if he does one a year, then he could pretty much do all the 14ers in the United States before...
Well, the idea is to give him the amount of 14ers adequate to his age. So he did 1 in 2014 when he was born, and he did 2 the next year. So that comes up to 3. So, so when he turns 20 years old, he's going to have to do 20 14ers in a year.
He's going to have to start doing repeats by the time he's around 30 somewhere?
That's right.
That's fantastic. I love it. You know,
there's quite a bit, right? Sorry to interrupt, but you know, you're from Colorado, right? You know, there's quite a bit of those 14ers out there. I think there's 58 in the state of Colorado. There's 15 in California, and there's Mount Rainier. So just in the U.S., we got a pool of about 80 or so 14ers to choose from. So you won't run out of 14ers, I think.
It's fantastic. Well, I wanted to tell you, just from experience, you've started a new adventure with your son. And as he comes more into himself and ages into joining the adventures that you and Shirley are doing, I think that you might find that the greatest joy is re-experiencing that sense of adventure when you're doing it with your son, watching him discover the world for the first time and remind you of your own discoveries many years before. I have found that to be such a delight, teaching my kids to alpine ski, to climb 14ers with my kids, teaching them to backpack. It's just been one of the greatest joys. And there is a season there where it makes it difficult to do all the things that you used to do. But there's a future ahead of you that is so rewarding. So congratulations in advance for that. You're going to love it.
Thanks. Thanks so much.
Yeah, very, very, very cool. Well, Yannick, thank you so much for your time today. And you really shared a lot with us, gave us so many insights and great stories about your experiences. I appreciate it so much. I really do. So again, tell our listeners what they should Google to find your blog about the trip.
Yeah, if you guys want to read our adventures, just Google those 4 words, Yannick, Shirley, Transcontinental Triathlon. So I'll just spell the name for you. Yannick is Yannick. Shirley is Hirley. And Transcontinental Triathlon, people spell it all kinds of ways, but they'll figure it out.
I love it. Very, very good. Well, thank you again for your time today.
You're welcome.
And for all of the listeners out there, as I always say, get out there and have some fun. You might not have the time to do a trip of this magnitude, but that's okay. Come up with your own adventure. Make it happen. It will be rewarding. It will change your life. Thanks for listening today to the Adventure Sports Podcast.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for listening to this episode. It really means the world to us that you want to spend your time with us. If you'd like to help us further, please just leave us a review on iTunes, share us on social media, tell your friends about us. You can become a patron, a supporter of the show for $5 a month at patreon.com/Adventure Sports Podcast. And if you know somebody that would make a good guest, reach out. We're always looking for good adventure and outdoor stories. And lastly, thank you to our sponsors, whose messages follow right now. Athletic Brewing makes the best non-alcoholic craft beer. Go to their website at athleticbrewing.com and use the code in our show notes to save 15% on your first order. The Nomadik, the first outdoor subscription box that helps you go on more adventures with the latest gear by delivering themed monthly boxes with innovative products and an outdoor challenge to match. Learn more at thenomadik.com/Adventure Sports Podcast. After all this adventure talk, if you're needing some gear yourself, but you need some advice before buying, go to backpacktribe.com, where you can ask questions to the owners who have experience with all the gear, as well as all of it for sale right there on their website.